Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. So, what is it about the mainstream media that is so hell-bent on trying to destroy President Trump, trying to undermine President Trump? We're now at a point where the mainstream media is acting as a mouthpiece for our enemies, whether they're reiterating Chinese talking points or now reiterating Iranian talking points. To me, shouldn't we all be America first? I mean, even if you're a member of the media, even if you're a journalist, don't you want success for America? Don't you want the world to be a safer place so Americans can be safer in that world? To me, I don't think that's the situation at all. I think the media not only hopes for President Trump's failure, but actively does its part to push President Trump. They try in a direction of failure. Obviously, they can't win, and they can't do that because President Trump is too strong for them. And I think the American public is onto them as well. But the more they try to push the American public against President Trump, it certainly makes President Trump's job a little more difficult when you're talking about those on the left and maybe moderates who are not awake to what is really going on. So we have a real problem with the mainstream media and how they look at America, how they report on America, and how they treat President Trump, because it just isn't fair. So I'm going to give you some reactions to the bombing by the mainstream media. We'll play some of President Trump's reactions to that, and then we're going to go through the program, and we've got a common theme, because we'll also show you some of the blame game the media plays with President Trump. Literally, they blame President Trump for everything. It's borderline comical to watch. So we will play that out for you today on the program. Before we do, though, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. You know, I've got a Patriot Mobile phone. I've got two lines from two different networks on this phone. I'm grateful for this phone because no matter where I go, I get a signal because of these two lines, two different networks. It's called the Patriot One plan, one phone, two lines. Also, it's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, 100% U.S.-based customer service. Switching is easy. It literally takes minutes when you call them up to switch your service. You can get a new phone. You can upgrade your phone. You can use your old phone. Patriot Mobile is there to help you. And again, it's about a parallel economy. These people believe in the things that we believe in, which is why Patriot Mobile is the official communications provider of Stinchfield's Army. So I want you to go to patriotmobile.com/grant, patriotmobile.com/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for a free month service. Call them at 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. And make sure that you tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, so great to be along with you today as we still unpack everything going on with Iran. So let's see, here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about a terrorist attack. There could be a situation where we have a terrorist attack moving into the July 4th weekend. That would be absolutely horrible. Something like that happens. But you think about big dates in the minds of a jihadist. July 4th would be one of those big dates. We know that we had open borders under Joe Biden. So we know that there are literally thousands, I believe, would be jihadists in this country. We know at least up to 1,000 based on who was caught on the terror watch list. Extrapolate those numbers to gotaways, at least 1,000. Now, it only took a handful of plane hijackers to wreak havoc on 9/11. It only takes one, maybe two, to blow up a suicide bomb someplace. I don't mean to scare you, because we've done a good job of keeping this at bay for the most part in a country that is very vulnerable, but it is still something we have to look out over. I'm not going to relate the mainstream media to terrorist activity, but boy, oh boy, when you think of the havoc they wreak on the American public, the havoc they wreak on the United States citizenry, to me, it's awful. And so I think the mainstream media needs to be called out for what it's doing, not only to President Trump, but America as well. Let me give you an example after the bombings. CNN was some of the worst, okay? Just listen to their claims here.
The Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now,
first off, just the sheer fact that they're reporting on what the Iranians think without saying, we believe this is totally bogus, is bad reporting. They're literally regurgitating what Iran is telling. Oh, there's nothing to see here. Yes, the 30,000-pound bunker busters and 75 Tomahawk missiles didn't do any damage to our nuclear sites. Give me a break. That's the reason why they want a full and unconditional surrender.
This information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community."
So who leaked it? Okay, who leaked a low-level report, a low-level loser leaking a report that has been discredited by those in the intelligence community, that no damage was done? CNN runs with it because they're in cahoots with the deep state. Whoever that intelligence analyst was that had access to that report is a member of the deep state. The only reason you would release that report is to try to make not just President Trump look bad, but the United States military look bad and take away from credibility from us. Now, I believe when you have a mission carried out like this, you are going to get assessments that run the gauntlet from total destruction to nothing happened. Probably somewhere in between. Was Fordow totally destroyed? I don't know. I'm not an analyst. I look at the map. It doesn't look crazy, but those are bunker busters that went deep into the ground, so the damage could be underneath. Either way, I'm going to guess that when you drop 30,000-pound bombs on someplace, it's going to do some serious damage. Now, President Trump reacted to this.
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSNBC. They're
scum. Thank you, Mr. President, for calling it out. And it's really not just the pilots. They're big boys. They can handle it. They know the mission they did. They're American heroes for what they carried out. To me, it's bigger than the pilots. To me, when the likes of CNN goes down this road, it's about trying to destroy the reputation of the United States at a point in time where the world is so dangerous. We do not need our own people, our own journalists, our own media trying to destroy the reputation of the United States. We've got other nations out there doing it, including our allies. Allies that root for the failure of the United States. Why do we have a mainstream media that roots for the failure of the United States? No one meets this mold more than Caitlin Collins of CNN. You know, this woman used to be a conservative. I think she worked for like the Daily Caller or the Daily Wire or something. She used to be spouting conservative talking points. Now she works for CNN. You know what it tells me? You can be bought off. Your words are nothing more than a commodity to be bought and sold. Not my words. I'm not selling these words. What you get from me is what I believe and only what I believe. And if I don't want to say it, I'm not going to say it, and nobody's going to make me say it. And I think my career has upheld that, much to the detriment of my success in some respects. But I don't care, because my word is everything. Not Caitlin Collins. How do you work for the Daily Caller? Going to that, to this, an America-hating Iranian propagandist.
But if this is the assessment that stands as it is right now and what the DIA found, according to this report, that undermines what President Trump has been saying publicly about the result and the impact of these strikes and what they had on Iran's nuclear program. Just this morning, he has been quite defensive about this, saying it's not enough in his view to just say that they were sufficiently damaged. He is saying they were completely destroyed and obliterated.
Why would President Trump say that if he didn't actually know it? He's not going to throw that out because he knows at some point you're going to be able to be proven wrong if, in fact, it is not totally destroyed. So Caitlin Collins now, again, a mouthpiece for the Iranian regime. Not good. President Trump again.
Every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSNBC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are.
They're real losers. How else do you describe it? Other than saying, you know what? They are total losers. Okay? I'm with you, Mr. President. Here, who else is with you? Israel is with you. We don't need, it's amazing. I'd rather have Israel on my side than the American mainstream media, though life would be easier if the American mainstream media was on our side. I've got to acknowledge that. It would be easier if they were on our side, but they're not. So you have outlets like this one. You've got Rumble. You've got Real America's Voice. You've got Salem Media. Oh, go figure, all the outlets I work for. You've got independent podcasters like this podcast. Here is the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, first, I think that President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. I think we should thank him for his leadership, for the brave decision he took, and to recognize the effort of the United States. Regarding your second question, yes.
You hear what he said? President Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He ought to get one. If this ceasefire holds, okay, which I don't know if it'll hold or not, but we're at least on the road to safety, and we're certainly on the road to safety with the nuclear facility wiped out.
We hope to see a ceasefire also in Gaza. There is a proposal on the table that Ambassador Witkoff put forward, and we hope to renew the negotiations on that proposal.
Okay. So I'm with them. I hope they get it done. I absolutely do. And I hope President Trump does get a Nobel Peace Prize for all of this. Folks, you have heard me tell you about my friends over at get20now.com. That's get20now.com, because you can get up to 20% annualized interest on your investment paid out monthly thanks to the folks at NFN8. We say get20now.com because this interest, annualized rate of 20% up to, will be paid monthly into your bank account, direct deposited. This is cash flow. This is, I call it monthly mailbox money, though it's now electronically deposited in your account. This is about Bitcoin mining. The folks at NFN8 can do it cheaper than anyone else, more efficiently than anyone else. The technology they are now using to cool the Bitcoin mining machines is fabulous. They are renting warehouse space in states specifically where they can buy the electricity cheaper than anyone else can. This allows them to pay you this interest. So if you don't like the wild swings of Bitcoin, which I don't like, you like the idea of investing in data centers, you like the idea of investing in the cryptocurrency industry, NFN8 is for you. Get20now.com. That's get20now.com. I've made a sizable investment with them. They've lived up to their promises to me. I get my money direct deposited every month. I want you to give them a look. Answer the phone when they call or call them right back when they leave a message. Please, they're very busy. This has been a popular investment opportunity. Get20now.com. That's get20now.com. You make sure you tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. Turning now to the hatred of President Trump, not just from the mainstream media, But we also have it from what I would describe as the blame Trump crowd. The blame Trump for everything. Have you noticed that's all they do is blame Trump? Why? Because Democrat policies fail at every single level. Here's Elizabeth Warren.
Look, Powell has been painted into a box by Donald Trump because we watch on the one hand that inflation seems somewhat moderated, and we need to get those rates down so people can afford to buy homes, and the cost of groceries we're watching go up. But we've got the problem of the softening labor environment, all because Donald Trump is creating chaos around the tariffs.
Chaos around tariffs. Inflation has continued to come down because of President Trump. Egg prices, which has been the lead indicator of groceries, continues to come down because of President Trump. We just saw the last wage numbers. Wages were up 0.4%. Not a massive number, but wages up. Unemployment down. So what is she saying? All of the increases that the Democrats have been screaming and yelling about have not materialized. They just haven't. What did we see? Excuse me. What did we see yesterday? The Dow Jones up 500 points. Why? Because President Trump is a peacemaker. Oil prices down 6.7%, now under $70 a barrel, $64 for West Brent crude. I mean, this is how you keep the price of everything down. You bring the price of oil down. That's what he's doing. So Elizabeth Warren just, again, will lie to the media. The media will run it. They will not question her. And this is what they do. There's more lies. Karen Bass, again, her city out in Los Angeles, she's the mayor of LA, is falling apart, and she spews lies.
What we're seeing in LA is chaos caused by the administration. People should exercise their right to protest. That's their First Amendment right. But people should also exercise that right peacefully. We do not want to play into the administration's hands. We're working with officials. We're organizing resources. But what we're seeing in Los Angeles is chaos that is provoked by the administration.
Chaos provoked by the administration. You don't arrest anybody. The first rock is thrown. The first Molotov cocktail is thrown. The first window of a police cruiser is busted. LAPD sit there and do nothing. You're going to blame President Trump for going around and arresting some of the worst offenders we have on the streets. You're going to blame President Trump for going up and rounding up people who came here illegally, by the way, much to the dismay of the American public and the American taxpayer. And you're going to blame them for the riots. LA riots where people come in from out of town. You've got Antifa that plans this. You've got George Soros-funded organizations literally funding the riots, and you're going to blame Donald Trump. But that's all they have is the blame game. More blame game.
President Trump is the biggest problem here. I mean, he has used hateful, degrading rhetoric from the day he decided to run for president, and then pardoning all of the January 6th attackers at the U.S. Capitol, people who thought that violence was a legitimate way to overturn an election, and Donald Trump gave him a big stamp of approval. You also heard Trump muttering about possibly pardoning the people who attempted to kidnap the governor of Michigan. Look, if Donald Trump and the Republican Party want this kind of thing to stop, they need to change their rhetoric.
Change the rhetoric? Think about it. Everything that he just mentioned there was a setup job. It now is pretty damn clear that January 6th was a setup job, where they egged on a very small group of those protesters at the Capitol that got a little bit out of line, and they certainly didn't deserve 3-4 years in prison. When you have literally destroyers, destructors, arsonists, murderers, killers that are out on the street the next day in cities like LA and Atlanta and New York and Chicago. So again, they blame President Trump. It's all getting quite old. Here's Chuck Schumer.
The FAA, The more Donald Trump and Doge indiscriminately hack away at public agencies, the greater harm to Americans' well-being and even their safety. The FAA is a good example. Just weeks after the deadliest plane crash in a long time, and just as we see more incidents around the country, President Trump has fired hundreds of FAA workers, including air safety personnel.
Wrong. Now, again, you see what Chuck Schumer's doing? He's blaming President Trump for a plane crash. Is that not a stretch? By the way, the FAA has been broken for a long time. You could make an argument that we didn't fix it during the first Trump administration. Okay. He's tried. Didn't get fixed during the Biden administration. This has been festering going all the way back to Ronald Reagan. And lawmakers in D.C. have not had the guts to fix the system where the American public relies on for safety. Now, it's not President Trump's fault. And by the way, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I can prove to you, he did not fire anyone that was in air safety inside the FAA. Not one air traffic controller was fired. So again, a flat-out lie by Chuck Schumer. But what do you expect from these people? They keep lying because they have nothing else, folks. Nothing else. So what do? In my opinion, we need to keep up the energy. How do you keep up the energy? My friends over at Energized Health. That's how. EnergizedHealth.com literally changed my life. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks on the Energized Health system. I have kept those pounds off. Why? Because of cellular hydration. Getting hydrated at a cellular level. Joint pain goes away. Brain fog goes away. Organ issues start to go away. Your entire health starts to come back at every single level. They talk about people suffering from asthma that have had huge improvement on the Energized Health system. So it's not just about losing body fat, which they'll help you lose body fat fast. I know somebody who lost 200 pounds on the Energized Health system. So don't use drugs to make it happen. Build muscle, lose body fat, have your mind, body, soul transformed through EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. You tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. Okay, let me explain to you what's happening.
Okay.
The deep state is very real. We now have a situation where one of the most powerful unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. is trying to sink President Trump's big, beautiful bill. This is the Senate parliamentarian. Her name is Elizabeth McDonough. She was hired years ago by Harry Reid.
Harry.
And now she is one to give the advice of what is acceptable for this reconciliation bill and what isn't, according to her interpretation of congressional rules and law. Now, what she's saying is you can't defund Planned Parenthood. Excuse me. She's saying you can't defund sanctuary cities. Excuse me. She's saying you can't defund the EPA. You can't cut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Excuse me.
Yeah.
All of this craziness.
You can't roll back the EV mandate.
You can't roll back the EV mandate. She is trying to sink the bill. Now, Republicans have the power to say no to them. Now, my question is, are these rhino Republicans in cahoots with this unelected deep stater hired by Harry Reid? Or will they have the stones to say, no, we're not going to listen to you. We're pushing this through. It's what MAGA wants. Get out of the way, Elizabeth McDonough.
And by the way, according to Jennifer Van Laar's reporting, John Thune, who's a Senate Majority Leader, he could fire her. He can appoint a parliamentarian of his own choosing. So he has the power to get rid of this woman.
Let me ask you a question, Jen. Why do we have somebody hired by Harry Reid when Republicans are in control of the United States Senate? I don't care if this, quote, nonpartisan elected bureaucrat is hired every 2 years by whoever leads the United States Senate.
Well, just the fact that she's been there that long is part of the problem, right? I mean, Harry Reid, we're talking about the 2000s. You're talking about the aughts, as they like to say. It's been a while. It's 20 years in that job.
You go through everything Elizabeth McDonough is trying to push out of this bill, and it's everything MAGA. She literally has a war on MAGA. And so what are Republicans going to do about it? Are they going to say no? Are they going to stand up and say, you know what?
Yeah.
You don't run the United States Senate. You don't decide for Republicans. We were elected with a mandate. We're going to push that mandate through and take it up someplace else. But Elizabeth McDonough, sorry, you're out of business.
The good news is that J.D. Vance is the presiding officer, basically, over the Senate, and he can ignore her ruling. But, of course, you know what that would do. Democrats would go bananas if they ignored it. It's almost like you're giving fodder to the other side to try to attack us, and you're giving them point by point where they should go. It just doesn't make a lot of sense at all.
This is why I say she's acting on behalf of the Democrats. There's no doubt about it in my mind. This is a plant hired by Harry Reid. She's there for a reason, to sink the Republican, but more importantly, the MAGA agenda, to divide Republicans, undermine President Trump, screw America. That's the Democrat way. This is what Elizabeth McDonough, the Senate parliamentarian, is doing by trying to say no to everything in this reconciliation package.
So some of the other things she's done already, you ready for this? Some of the things that she's already done in her role to this year's Republican Party. She nixed provisions to reduce pay for certain Federal Reserve staff. She slashed $293 million from the Treasury Department's Office of Financial Research and dissolved the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which is tasked with overseeing audits of publicly traded companies. Each of those, she ruled, either lacked sufficient budgetary impact or were primarily aimed at changing policy, not federal revenues or outlays. So she's killed stuff that Republicans have already said that they wanted to do. She rejected language in a bill drafted by the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee that would have exempted certain infrastructure projects from judicial review under the National Environmental Policy Act. Interesting. Because that's a pretty powerful job for someone who most people don't even know her name.
She's a Republican policy killer. That's what she is.
That's what she does. Yep. All right, 855-785-8255. So I'd say what you could do about this, little puppies, first of all, you can be happy that we've got J.D. Vance because he's going to give about 2 cents care about what she has to say. But Thune should get some pressure, I think, to get rid of her. Put somebody else in there, don't you think?
I do. I think you need somebody else there. I think people need to start getting engaged because I worry this Iran situation is the next ruse. It's the next distraction to all of this. This Iran deal has everybody focused on that while the big, beautiful bill languishes, floundered as it's under attack by an unelected bureaucrat. To me, that's what's happening. They were using the ICE raids to take away from what's most important right now. Now they're using the Iran situation. Let's get back to what's important for America. America first. Let's get this big, beautiful bill passed. Let's get the tax cuts through, and don't let some unelected bureaucrat get in the way.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I think as far as the Iran deal goes, that was America first. I've seen a lot of people out there who are upset by this action on our own side of the aisle. This benefits America's future. It benefits Israel's future. It benefits peace in the Middle East, and we all benefit from that. So it was definitely America first strike, but now we need to move on. You're right. We have our own policy here. If we don't get this bill done and if we don't make those tax cuts permanent again, we're going to have a really big problem. And that's going to impact President Trump's ability to move around. It's going to impact the way the congressional elections will happen next year. I mean, there's a lot on the line that is riding with this bill.
Unfortunately, the tax cuts are so important. They've got to be pushed through, and there's some stuff in this bill that I don't like.
I know,
okay?
but it's got to go.
There's some stuff I don't love, but the reality is now we don't really have a choice but to pass this thing.
Yeah.
And so, is it perfect? No. Will it clear the runway for President Trump? I think in many respects it will. Again, I'll get back to what I always say. Why wouldn't we trust this president who everything that he's told us has come out the way he wanted it to come out, including the Iran strikes?
Got to trust him to
within
get it
days.
done.
So just trust this president. Put our faith in his hands. Doesn't mean we have to go blindly into the night, but raise some concerns, but put some trust in him. But here's who I don't want to put trust in: Elizabeth McDonough, a Senate parliamentarian hired by Harry Reid. All right, folks, one of the things I want to talk about is everything going on with Iran, ceasefire, no ceasefire. I truly believe this nation cannot be trusted. We know, and I profiled it, their ability to attack us from a cyber perspective is very, very real. We even predicted that they were going to try to unleash a massive cyber attack on the United States by July 4th. I still don't discount that, even with whatever deals President Trump is making. So I say, what are you doing to protect yourselves? We already know that the dark web is home to so much of your private information stolen from so many data breaches. Many of these data breaches are on purpose, too, by the way. They broke in and stole your personal information. How do you protect yourself? You know, I talk about it all the time. Patriot-protect.com/Grant. Patriot Protect will go and scrub your information. They go to over hundreds of data broker sites. They scrub your information, and they make sure that you limit the risk here. But the risk is very big. And with that, I want to bring in Skip Holtz. He's with Patriot Protect, patriot-protect.com/Grant. And look, there's a lot of threats out there. So he's incognito, to say the least, Skip. But welcome to the program, and thank you for your support of this program and others like it, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. I had just come back from Party City from asking them to make me a cybersecurity expert, so they were able to pull through, as you can tell. Hey, look, when you're in this line of business, you know, you gotta protect yourself, and like you said, I appreciate you saying it, and glad to be on your show with somebody that understands the risk of what we're doing here and the threats that we're under. It's no joke.
All right, so let's take Iran. They work closely, by the way, with Russia and China, two other very bad actors when it comes to stealing personal information and cyber attacks. What do you see the immediate future holding as far as cyber attacks and the American public is entailed?
Yeah, great question. We used to use this term back in the Bush administration when you hear chatter. Remember those terms? You hear chatter kind of on the lines of all the the terror cells that were going on, and things have shifted so much. We say this a lot that we're kind of under the understanding, or used to be, that our adversaries are working with bows and arrows, and when they've moved on to gunpowder without us even blinking. So there's an enormous threat going on right now with Iran, and I'm not saying that to be hyperbolic. This has been one of the busiest years that we've ever had in the cybersecurity industry. And Iran, as you mentioned before, is foremost in that. They physically attacked a U.S. air base in Qatar this week, right? So then it begs the question, okay, maybe they're not doing something that involves, ordnance, but what are they doing to undermine the stability of the American Republic? A couple things I want to mention here. Yes, exactly as you mentioned, the Iran cyber groups have been probing civilian infrastructure. They've done it before. U.S. water authorities and hospitals were targeted in past campaigns. And, according to the Department of Homeland Security, hacktivists and the Iranian government affiliated actors are constantly targeting poorly secured U.S. networks. And so you ask yourself, hey, I'm just a person with a W-2 and a house. How does this affect me? Let me introduce you to a Iranian state-aligned hacking group called Charming Kitten. They've been known as a couple different titles. They've been known as Phosphorus, Mint Sandstorm, APT-35. But like I said, they're a state-aligned cyber espionage that started in 2004. And what they do is they are master spear fishers. As you recall, the term phishing, which is they find somebody, a target, it's an American civilian, but we use the term spear phishing when it's not using a shotgun approach, it's using a rifle approach. They are targeting you. They've posed as journalists before. They've posed as they clone your accounts, and they use kind of sock puppet identities to harvest credentials. And this has escalated since 2019. Microsoft at the time was observing like 2,700 Charming Kitten attacks during the U.S. presidential campaign. So this is not just, this isn't an isolated incident. This is a targeted campaign to undermine the stability of the U.S. Republic. And what does that mean? That means undermining people, citizens, taxpayers of America, because that's what generates the strength of this country.
I would think that with President Trump doing everything he can do to get this under control in the Middle East, one benefit to the Iranians using cyber warfare against us is it's more difficult to tie it back to them, or they can claim that they didn't have any responsibility and it was rogue groups. Am I on to something?
Absolutely. Of course. Because that's what we every country uses this, and this is especially the case in China and Russia, as they hide behind this kind of veil of plausible deniability. Like I said, this is a state-aligned group. They are enacting the agenda of the Ayatollah without actually having to be them. And so therefore, if something goes awry, they can just hide behind that plausible deniability. And like I said, they are not just going for these weak points, the weakest part of the chain. They're looking to undermine the entire foundation of the country.
What is it that Patriot Protect can do to protect the everyday folks from these bad actors?
Look, this is why we're here. We believe in liberty. We believe in privacy. We believe in your ability to self-determinate your life. And so the question is, you believe in the Second Amendment. You put a lock on the front door of your house. Most of how we interact with our banks, our children's schools, our economy, and our employers is through a digital interface. So you have to ask yourself, yes, you put a lock on your front door. Why did you not put a lock on your digital identity? If you Google yourself, if you're not a customer of Patriot Protect already, I invite you to Google your name and address and watch the dozens of pieces of information, websites that have your name, your address, your relatives' names, your email address, your phone numbers, past addresses, people that are in your family that have since deceased. And so the question is, this is all out there for free. It's information that is published by these data brokers their existence should be illegal. And they're published such that anybody for free, or for anybody that wants a little bit deeper information, can pay pennies on the dollar to target you. And so what we do is we have several different products, but the core product, our core coverage, is to take you off of all of these data sites, to make you ungoogleable, to make you a vastly higher cost target for all these hackers, these cyber criminals, scammers, people that are trying to take your information, weaponize it against the people that you love, and they could use all sorts of sophisticated techniques to drain your bank accounts. And this happens all the time. And so, they are running a business like anything else, and they are measuring the cost and benefit, right? The input versus output. And so if you use our service, you are a magnitudes higher cost target to take advantage of versus somebody that hasn't used that has service. So the question you ask is, you put a lock on the front of your house. Why don't you put a lock on your digital identity? Because if you haven't thus far, every minute that goes by is a moment of exposure that you are able to be a target to these cyber criminals and hackers from the likes of Iran, China, and Russia.
Well, look, I can speak from experience. So when you guys signed up with this program, I signed up with y'all. And when I type in Grant Stinchfield's address, here's the reality. I feel sorry for my father. His name's Grant Stinchfield. Well, his address is left up there. Mine's gone. So my address was everywhere from all kinds. And literally, I just did it as you're talking. All that's gone. So now my poor father, well, his address is up there. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up my father, and we'll get his address wiped as well.
Hey, we got family plans.
So, yeah, all right. So there we go with the family plan. But literally it worked. And that's just, a few weeks. I guess it was probably about a month ago that I signed up. And it's just the first time I checked, and everything's gone. That's the good thing. The reality is, besides the Iranian cyber hackers, there are other cyber hackers out there and data breaches. I just saw AT&T had a massive cyber breach. Your email addresses. I'm going to ask you, we all see these. This is you have unpaid tolls. And then the number comes from like a foreign number, +63. Who falls for this? I don't know. You got to be an idiot. What does it mean when your number has fallen into where you're getting these, you have unpaid tolls text messages?
Right. No, great question. So, there's two different sides that we look at this. We look at the public web, which is what our opt-out service takes you off of. And then we look at the dark web, which is what our blackout service addresses. So like the AT&T leak, which was on the order of 86 million records. So if you're an AT&T customer and this has happened to T-Mobile before, you're exposed. And the reality is that there's only a handful of providers you can work with. So if it hasn't happened yet to Verizon in the last 5 years or so, it is likely to. That was an enormous leak, and that included things like tax IDs, social security numbers, addresses, contact info. You're exposed. And so one of the things that we do is we scan the dark web with our blackout service for your phone number and email address to see if it is up for sale. And if it is up for sale for the likes of cyber criminals, hackers, and scammers, then we tell you when it happened, where it happened, and what you can do about it. Like you said, Grant, this isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so the question is, are you willing to let yourself stay exposed? Because there was another enormous another credential leak that happened on the order of 16 billion login credentials. We all have multiple login credentials, and this was a worldwide breach. It affected Apple, Google, Facebook, Telegram, and this is just the blueprint for account takeovers, for identity theft, and for phishing campaigns that are out there to target you. And so, do you want to leave yourself out there? We had another hack that happened in the last week. Aflac Insurance. This isn't. Keep in mind too. Yes, you may not have coverage under the umbrella of Aflac, but this is all these insurance companies have a network of underwriters that they work with. So if you have Geico or Progressive or wherever you have your home, car and renters insurance, there is a potential exposure there. Again, like I said, these scammers, like in the toll, I love the toll hack. When you get that email or you get that text message, they're not just sending these out at random. They're not just going through the list and doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're seeing and filtering through those that are the most exposed because they are business people just like anybody else, targeting those that they deem to be the most susceptible and the easiest target. And once they roll you in, you respond to something or whatever, or even don't respond, that's also data for them. And so the question is, do you want to leave yourself there exposed? Yeah. You know our answer.
The answer for me is absolutely not. They must think I'm an easy target because I get those damn toll messages all the time, which means, again, my data was compromised. Thanks to Patriot Protect, I'm seeing it in real time, starting to remove all that data from the website. So a big thank you from me to you, Skip, and the team at patriot-protect.com/grant. patriot-protect.com/grant. Pay them a visit today and protect yourself. With that, Skip Holst, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing this information. It's really a public service more than it is a business, and I appreciate that.
I like to believe that, and I got to tell you, next time we come on, there's going to be a whole host of other leaks that have happened then. So stay tuned. Welcome to go to our website and see all the breach alerts that are happening.
Well, it's clear to me that they are not going to stop anytime soon. Again, folks, let me get the website up here. It is patriot-protect.com/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 15% off. patriot-protect.com/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 15% off. All right, folks, before I let you go, I want to tell you about, should we just play a clip of a liberal going nuts here? A nutty liberal offering up that Iran should bomb red states. Wait a second. Who else offered this up way back when? This is when I caused national news when I told Iran to bomb Guam. My joke was when I was at the NRA that Sacramento was so anti-gun Iran or North Korea, I can't remember. I think it was North Korea was threatening to bomb Guam. I tweeted, somebody ought to tell North Korea Sacramento changed its name to Guam. You would have thought that all hell broke loose. That was a joke. This is not a joke.
Dear Iran, this is my official application of states that you should wipe out because we did not vote for that orange Cheeto man over here in Los Angeles. Alabama.
Out of here.
Florida.
Out of here.
Arkansas.
Boom.
Oklahoma.
Get 'em gone.
Ohio.
No.
Kansas.
Gone.
Kentucky.
No.
Arkansas.
Red.
Tennessee.
Fire.
Are you kidding me? They want all those states, I guess, apparently blown up. Red states. Why? Because we have success and they don't, and they're jealous. That's what it all comes down to. It really does. And quite frankly, it's sad. Hey, before I let you go, very, very important. My friends over at the Wellness Company, I want you to go there. This idea of parasites is very, very serious. Okay? TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT. 60 million Americans with parasites. They now say that causes brain fog. Parasites also responsible for possibly skin cancers and other types of cancers, which is why this parasite cleanse with ivermectin and mebendazole, a parasite, typically known as a parasite killer, is doing all kinds of wonders when it comes to cancer. But here's the deal. Parasites are real. They can lead to bloat. They can lead to gout. They can lead to skin issues, eczema. So this ivermectin mebendazole combination from the Wellness Company is fabulous. TWC.health/grant. I have started my course of the parasite cleanse, which, by the way, has been sold out 3 times. It's that popular because it is really helping Americans take their life back. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. And that's going to do it for us. I appreciate all of you folks. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.